Welcome to the Tim Castle Show, where I sit down with courageous individuals doing inspirational things around the world. Whether it's AI, crypto, mindset, leadership, negotiation and sales, I've got you covered. I sit at that nexus of disruption and change. I'm loving every second of this. I really do believe this is the most abundant time that we've lived in. And if we harness what's going on correctly, we can build businesses that are going to transform our future and your lives. So come with me on this journey, meet the people. I pull back the curtain, I find out who they really are. I started off building this podcast for my sons as something they could look back on later in life and see the conversations that their dad had with people that he respected and admired, but most of all, get the lessons. And now I'm sharing those lessons with you and the reasons that people have done things, the ambition, the passion, and the hardship and their vulnerabilities. And I actually really enjoy it. This is one of the most special times as I get to sit down with people that I really would love to chat to and ask them the questions that are burning in my mind. If you are the same as me and you're pushing the limits and the edges of what you do, please like and subscribe to the show. It helps me tremendously to get new guests on the show and expand that reach so we can help more people together. So I've got someone very, very special on the show today. I've got an editor, a writer, a podcast host, former BBC, FT, Daily Mail, Arabian Business, finance, entrepreneurship, and now the author of the Crypto Clear newsletter, Justin Harper. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Tim, for having me. I think my head has just swollen a couple of inches after that introduction. So thank you for that list of plaudits. Just a regular guy wearing sunglasses indoors in Dubai, as you do.
I love it. I love it. You're embracing the Dubai culture there of crypto technology and the nexus of living life large. I love it.
Yeah, absolutely. It is, Dubai has an image, the bling, the lifestyle, sunglasses, the crypto space, technology and AI, which, we're going to get into as well. So yeah, I just thought it's fitting to play up to that image. But, when you come here, you see there's also some very regular, straightforward things about Dubai, just like any other city, just like Singapore.
Well, you've got to keep it up. You've got to keep it up. I love that you brought that onto the show. So you
keep up
specialize. Oh, exactly. Like that I've never had someone in sunglasses before. So it's a first for us and this is great.
Brilliant.
I'm glad it's you. So you specialize in I've seen your work over the last 8 years because obviously we used to know each other and live in Singapore. But you specialize in business, personal finance, entrepreneurship, brand building, now crypto, property. I mean, you've done a lot of different topics, even luxury as well. So you've got multiple skills. And I think just to embrace or to kind of start this conversation off, like there's multiple skills here. The audience tends to be founders or CEOs of businesses, professionals in their 30s up to their 50s, people that are looking to get after it. I think everybody would like to know, just because of the breadth of experience that you have, what it is that makes a great journalist.
Yeah, I think when I meet a great journalist, I'll let you know. Until then, my assumptions are, as you mentioned there, you've got to be agile. You've got to spot these trends, but not just spot a trend. You've got to spot a trend that you think will be around for a while. Because, that's where Instagram and social media is so good at going viral, but then a couple of days later, everybody's forgotten about it and something new's come along. I think now as a journalist, you've got to spot those trends early that you think are long players, that you think have got longevity, and other people will get involved and you'll create a whole new industry, the way we've seen with AI, the way we've seen with crypto, and technology is a classic example of that. You've got to spot them early and get in there and I guess put skin in the game, not just write about it, but consistently be the go-to person or newspaper or media outlet. So I think it's really reading the room and sort of, talking to lots of people and saying, look, do you think this will last? Do you think this is a flash in the pan? Or do you think this is really going to be something that will be around in a year, 2 years time? And I think that really helps to, rather than, go from trend to trend, spot those things you consider to be more long-term trends.
No, I can see that. And I see that through your career. And if I just look back doing some research and obviously seeing you working at various different properties and magazines across the years, I've seen you take on quite daring topics, but then they turn into fully fledged themes and, as you say, long-term trends. I also noticed that you've set up something called the Crypto Clear newsletter. I saw it's described as a light-hearted newsletter aimed at crypto curious and beginners alike. So, what is the Crypto Clear newsletter and why did you go into that?
Yeah, I'm going to take my sunglasses off now. I can't see my screen so well. So it's not very practical. Yeah, crypto clear is interesting because I work for I came on as a co-founder of a company called the Crypto Radio, and our whole mission was to try and make crypto a little bit more easy to understand, simplify it, and just explain all the jargon and the simplifying terms. Now that was difficult on a radio show, and we struggled. And I thought, you know what, I think it's still a real gap in the market and a real demand for people who are on the sort of outskirts of crypto. They're like, I've heard about Bitcoin, I've heard about Ethereum, I want to get involved, but I'm too scared, it's too volatile, and I just wish someone would talk in plain English. We are seeing a lot more crypto exchanges and influencers doing that, but it's a really hard thing to do is to get that balance where you're not patronizing people, but you're really not assuming they know a lot about the space. You've really got to explain things. And people use the word dumb down, which obviously the connotations are you're dumb and you're having to explain it. Like with lots of things, there's no such thing as a stupid question, and especially in crypto, because you have to ask so many questions. Otherwise, you're going to lose all your money. So basically, I felt that there really is still a strong need to explain things to people because they are interested. They do think that crypto could well be the future of money. The underlying technology of blockchain is being used in lots of things outside of crypto. Governments are using it for passports, the police are using it. So, it's a really exciting space that a lot of people are sort of, a bit overwhelmed by. So that's really where Crypto Clear came in, just trying to, week by week, look at a subject that people are interested in, break it down, but try and be a bit lighthearted with it, try and be a bit funny with it. Because even in the crypto space, you've got these crypto bros and they have all of these silly symbols and, abbreviations that they use, FOMO and HODL and all this sort of stuff. There's a little bit of fun within the community, but it is very much a bit of a clique. And so it's like, well, we can have a bit of fun as well, breaking down a lot of that jargon. So I thought, people still respect humor, still find it a good way to get into a subject. So, that's really the nucleus of Crypto Clear.
What I love about what you do is you break down these complex like language jargon and you make it easy for people to grab hold of something. And that would be especially important, especially for things like on X, right? If you go on X and you start thinking about crypto, you're going to ride that emotional wave. You're going to be up one day, down the next. You're going to think the world's over every 5 seconds. So I can see how something like Crypto Clear as a newsletter and that form of medium, rather than like you say, the radio show, just bridges that gap and makes it much more tangible for people to kind of snack on and build up their vocabulary, their confidence, and weave their way into it.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's exciting.
And it takes me back to when I first became a journalist. I mean, a mainstream journalist. So I worked for the FT Group, and obviously that's read by CEOs and founders and the financially, I guess, aware and sophisticated. But then I moved, as you mentioned, to the Daily Mail, and I was there for about 8 years, and that's more mainstream newspaper, and it has a huge audience, again, from CEOs and CFOs right down to housewives and sort of the man and woman on the street. And that's really where I had to learn those skills of writing about business and finance for everybody, and really trying to simplify things from funds, even things like mortgages. There's still a lot of misconceptions about mortgages, about how credit cards work and the interest you pay or you don't pay on a credit card or what you're being charged. It's amazing how we use a lot of financial products and fully don't understand how they work. And that's the thing about the Daily Mail. People always said to me, because it's got divided opinion. People love it and they hate it. But I think what everybody said within the industry was, Daily Mail really trains you up well, and it really teaches you to think always not about yourself and subjects you like. Think about the audience. Would the audience understand this? Would they get it? Talk to me like I'm a 14-year-old kid. And it's always like, will the audience understand this? That's your starting point, and work back to simplify everything so they get it. You might get it, and you might want to show off, oh, I know so much about investment funds. Oh, I know how mortgages work. I'm an amazing journalist, and look how smart I am with my business studies degree. But that's missing the point. The point is the audience, and that's really where I guess from an early age, not an early age, but earlier in my career, I sort of always had the audience, readership, listeners in mind.
I love this, Justin. Like that's so applicable to so many people right now that you're taking a skill that you learned early on in your career and now it's set you up for success to go out there and disseminate information. And salespeople, business development people, all of us have to communicate. And to do that, like we all take on complex topics and we overcook it, we overspeak, we oversell. So this is really, really important stuff, really, really valuable. From your vantage point then, entrepreneur Middle East, like what are the most exciting trends that you're seeing shaping the startup and entrepreneurial world right now?
I mean, we touched on crypto, and that is a space, but a lot of, I guess, people and governments are still yet to get involved because they see it's too risky or they really want to highly regulate it. And Dubai is definitely ahead of the curve when it comes to creating that safe space, the regulation, and the whole framework for crypto companies to come here. But then it's much more than crypto; it's blockchain as well.
Hmm.
And the Dubai government and the Dubai police, they will use blockchain. They want passports to go on the blockchain. Maybe one day we won't even need a passport; it will be fingerprinted and verified on the blockchain. And then taking it even further, there's AI and deep tech and how AI can pretty much touch every sector, especially finance and fintech as well. And so it's really that bigger picture of how technology is shaping our lives that I think Dubai has really got on board quickly with. And yes, crypto is exciting, and that's where a lot of the excitement is. But I think there's so much more that the technology, because obviously crypto wouldn't exist without the blockchain. That's the thing. The blockchain will exist without crypto. It doesn't need crypto. And it's like, well, the blockchain is the underlying technology that is going to power so much of what we do going forward. And that's where the UAE and Dubai, I think, has really been ahead of the game. And yet you're just seeing so many companies come here, existing companies from the US, from Asia, from Europe, as well as entrepreneurs and founders coming here and saying, look, this is a really exciting space. And there's lots of people who I can connect with and build a network who are in a similar point where they're just building. And that's what Dubai is all about, building new things.
That's it. I guess it is it even more so than Singapore? Because in Singapore, you feel like you're only one person away from someone you need to meet.
Yeah, I mean, this is the really interesting thing because when I was in Singapore, I was there for 12 years. People didn't really talk about Dubai and the UAE much. I think it was still sort of finding its feet. The risk was China, what's going on in China, maybe Hong Kong as a financial hub rival. And then when I got to Dubai, everybody wanted to know about Singapore. They're like, "Oh, you came from Singapore. It's amazing. It's so futuristic. They're so ahead when it comes to Web3 with crypto." And people look here to Singapore as one of the leading examples, which was really interesting because it didn't work the other way. But as time's gone by, I've been here nearly 4 years. Dubai is now sort of a bit more confident in itself. It's sort of obviously looking at what's going on around the world, but it's now forging ahead its own path. And so, there's a lot of similarities. There's a lot of expats who come to Dubai for their lifestyle and for the low taxes, zero taxes, the same way there is in Singapore. And so, yeah, there's a lot of similarities, but I think the difference is really how Singapore sits in the middle of the developing world and the developed world there. It's so much still developing in the Middle East, so much excitement, but still a lot of work to do. And the UAE is a much bigger country, than
Hmm.
Singapore. I love Singapore. The fact that you can get to the airport in 20 minutes, from one side of Singapore to the other, and the MRT and the buses. It's a small country, and we all know it's a huge success story. 50 plus years, it's done incredibly well. The UAE is just bigger. Everything's sort of done on a bigger scale, but you could say that about Saudi Arabia, and it's a huge country. It's the biggest economy within the Middle East, and the money just seems to never end. Deep pockets. So it's just everything's kind of like 10x out here.
Yeah, exactly. And I can see that they're really putting blockchain in at the fundamental level, at an infrastructure level. Like they're not just weaving it in on top. This is rethinking the whole thing. So it's all connected. It's all going onto blockchain and it's happening now. And like you say, the money's there. So they're building. I mean, even Saudi Arabia, right? They've got the line, they've got the is it the Neon project, they've got so many different things kicking off that by 2030, like the big vision, it's all going to come together and it's going to be a whole revolution. So, but how do Middle East founders then differentiate from, say, a Silicon Valley founder or someone in Asia Pacific?
Yeah, I think that thing about this hybrid market, the developed and the emerging markets coming together in the UAE is fairly different for the Middle East. So many economies on the up, so many economies already quite well developed. I think gives people that really good balance. And then the government. There's huge, whether it's sovereign wealth funds in Saudi, the funds there, the PIF, and then in Dubai and also Abu Dhabi. There's huge sovereign wealth funds here with lots and lots of money to invest in technology and Web3. And that's great from a founder and entrepreneur knowing they've got this pool of cash that they can potentially cap into. And governments that are very proactive in saying, look, we have money to give. If you're doing something in Web3, we want to fund it. If you're doing something interesting that's on the blockchain, we want to fund it. So it's not like you necessarily go to the government. It's like almost like the government comes to you. They're very keen to give money to good ideas. The same way you can get a golden visa for 10 years in the UAE if you're an entrepreneur and if you're a founder. You can get one if you're a content creator, if you're an influencer as well in the right space. So they really encourage that entrepreneurial spirit. And yes, of course, other countries do that and other cities do that. But I just think it's that level of the
Mm.
cash available to do it is amazing. And then you've got here as well, family offices are moving here. You've got the sovereign wealth funds, you've got the government money, and then you've got family offices and hedge funds all coming here and trying to make the most of being, in the actual region that they want to also fund regional startups as well. So it's just that access. I think it's that access to cash across so many different, streams. Really puts the Middle East ahead of other markets.
Yeah, right. So there's tons of stuff in momentum here right now. There's a lot going on. Well, how do you pick which stories to cover? Like, what process do you go through that for a story that makes you say, yes, that's the one we're going to cover?
I mean, I mentioned about spotting trends and then speaking to people and saying, look, experts in the field, and that's, I guess, journalists has to be sociable. They have to get out and they have to meet people. I know a lot of stuff is desktop and is done on, whatever chat GPT or across WhatsApp, it's done in the privacy of your own home or an office. But I really value going out, meeting people for coffee, face to face and networking, especially post COVID, getting out and about again and talking to people and just getting their opinions of things and their opinions and just pulling it all together. And then seeing, I guess if there's a common thread, and also with the government as well, being very proactive. You look at what they're doing and you talk to people and say, look, do you think that will work? Because obviously governments get things wrong as well. And right now, what we're seeing is a real push for tokenization. And I touched on it on my Crypto Clear newsletter. Just the word tokenization just puts me off. It's just a big word and it's confusing. It's like tokenize what? What is tokenization? And so, but that's a really big driver for Dubai and the UAE is tokenization. And again, you really have to break it down and say, what if I told you that a property worth 10 million dirhams on the Palm, one of the fanciest parts of Dubai, is up for sale? You can't buy that property for 10 million, that villa by the beach. But if I told you it had been tokenized, it had been split up into lots and lots of different parts, and each token represents a part of that property, would you want to buy it? I said, yeah, of course. I can't afford 10 million, but I can afford a few thousand dirhams, and I still get access to that property, not physically, but in its value going up. And they're like, oh yeah, I understand that. It's kind of making expensive things accessible for the common man, and that's really what tokenization is doing. Property is definitely the starting point because property prices here, a bit like Singapore, they've shot up and they've become out of reach for many people. They can't physically own the property, but through tokenization and fractional ownership, they can own a slice of property and still ride the property boom in Dubai, which is still carrying on. And that's really just breaking it down so people understand. You don't need to know the word tokenization. It's not a nice word. It's an ugly word. But the actual what it actually means and what it does for you can really, give you access to things, watches, cars, racehorses, all sorts of things can be tokenized. And that's really spotting those trends. It's like, yeah, okay, tokenization now is happening in property, but we know it can be used for so many other things. And that's really what I guess I've tried to do, speak to people and say, this tokenization thing, do you think this is going to really, sort of take off? And they'll say yes or no. And then you talk to enough people, they'll give you a consensus, and then you go off and that's your new sort of topic of the day.
Today I want to share something that's incredibly close to my heart. It's this book here in my hands. It's The First Domino. I wrote this to help you expand into new markets, to make the most of your first 90 days. Whether it's a new role that you've started, whether it's a new team that you've taken on, or your company has launched a new product or service, or you're just a founder and you really haven't landed that first major client yet. Imagine this, you're starting a new job and you're sitting down and you're opening up your computer and you've got 43 new Slack messages, a ton of new emails and content that you've got to learn. The pressure's on. Not only that, but you've got to go out and you've got to meet all these new people, these new staff members, these new clients. But most of all, you've got to add value. And whether you acknowledge it or not, you know the pressure is on. You know that this time is precious and that this company has brought you on for a reason. And you're there to prove that reason. That's one of the reasons I wrote this book. It's something that you can read on the weekend and implement on Monday to guide that process so that you can systematize the process of excelling and bring those trusted relationships forward and move the needle on landing your first major client. This book is going to push you to do anything but be comfortable. It's going to help you get breakthroughs. If we tip that first domino, we're going to get a chain reaction of success. That's why I wrote it. It's a playbook to understand the psychology of sales, the intelligence that you need to build leverage into your sales process. And it's for anyone that wants to do business development, growth, or just build their personal brand and take ownership of the direction of their career, their money, and their life. When you land that first domino, that first major client, I want you to post it up and tag me. If you are bold enough to take on the challenge, to really put it into action, to lead with heart, I promise you, you will change your stars. So if you're looking to create a generational legacy and make an impact, this is the first domino, and it only takes one. Yeah, so really following your curiosity there, I think it's really about access then, like almost like democratization in a way that years ago, it was the elites that could only get access to attention and media and get involved. And now we've got things like TikTok and Facebook and Instagram, and it's kind of democratized the whole thing. And if you've got value to put out, you can create your own brand and go big. And similarly now, like you said with property, if that's broken down and it now accessible, you can ride that same wave if you spot that opportunity and then get economically incentivized to do that. So yeah, it's really, really exciting. But I'm guessing you get a lot of founders, entrepreneurs, authors approach you in the media. Like what would you say are the rules for approaching media if they want to get featured and not come across like a self-promotional or like they're wanting something too much?
Yeah, it is tough, and I do get approached by a lot of PR people, media people, as the founders themselves, because I write for, Entrepreneur Middle East and do cover entrepreneurs for other titles as well. And the word's been around for a while, I know for at least 2 years, and it's still relevant now. It's called authenticity, being authentic and being real. And I still think, I guess it's nothing new, but it's become more, important now with all of the branding and all of, the sort of corporate involvement there and all of the PR spin to really be genuine and be real. But also it sounds quite vague. It's like, well, I am real. This is me. I'm talking to you now. I'm real. It's like, no, you have to tell me sort of unfiltered what you're doing as a company, what your brand is doing, and try not to use language that I don't understand, that I know has been fed or is from a press release. Just be normal, just speak normal. And it's a tough one, but if you've struggled with something, you have to be honest with people and say, we struggled to get this product out, or we had to work really hard and we made mistakes. Very few people do that, but I just think consumers and the public really respect people who say, this is our end result, but it was really hard to get this. We really had to work hard on this, rather than, oh, it was really easy and it came to us overnight. I think sometimes to tell that backstory, and another one of these buzzwords, storytelling. Telling the story, like how you came to be where you are as a person, or as a brand, or even as a product, just to let people know the journey, and you said this could have been something different, and now this is it. And like, oh, I I never knew that. Rather than here it is, thank you very much. I think it's giving people the chance to be part of your journey. And I guess these are all buzzwords, but I guess you just have to drill down and say what does that mean, and look at brands and companies that are doing it well, and say actually that's because they're being authentic, that's because they're being genuine, and that's because they've encouraged the people to get on board their whole journey and how they're developing as a brand and as a company.
Yeah, that's really important. I think that would have helped a lot of people listening in today, because there's something about that authenticity and that storytelling combined that you just can't fake it. And you can smell it when it's not real. Like you can tell someone's feeding you a line. Or even when you're probably writing to someone that you would like to influence to give you an opportunity, when you're structuring it and it's too hard and you're not actually getting through that email, you're not able to compose what you're trying to say properly. I can feel it. It's like a staged experience. Just be real. I think you said it. Like it's just be real. Just be you, and put it across when you're in flow, and it should come out naturally, because there's a genuineness to it. There's an integrity to it that's consistent throughout how you're positioning yourself, your brand, your company, or whatever. And it becomes a lot easier. I can see that. So how you obviously interview a lot of different founders, you come across a lot of different stories. What stands out, like in terms of the best stories you've heard recently, and what qualities have been a part of the people that you've seen succeed?
I think it's being passionate about what you're doing. And I know you're passionate about your writing and about the sort of motivational stuff, and that comes across. And I think with a lot of entrepreneurs and founders, they get so involved in what they're doing, they maybe lose touch sometimes with why they did it in the first place. And I
Mm.
think it's really stay passionate about what you're doing, and that will come across to the audience. And another thing we're talking about, about this self promotion or being authentic, is the word of social media and working with ambassadors and influencers as well, and how you want real people to tell your story, and then so you pay them money to tell the story, and it's like, okay, already it's a little bit of a gray area there. I'm paying you to say nice things about me. Is that real?
Mm.
Already. But you're an athlete, you're a celebrity, you're a famous person. I've got to pay you to endorse my product. But do you actually use my product? And next week, will you be endorsing the product of my rival?
Right.
And it's stuff like that. And I think that's where you can look at the founder and the entrepreneur and say, you're passionate about what you're doing. Otherwise, you wouldn't have set up this company. And obviously, we know there's lots of challenges and difficulties you face. And then spotting similar people who are passionate about your product as well, and getting them on board as ambassadors. Of course, you might still pay them, but they're already using your product, or they're already on board with it and are aligned with what you're doing. Rather than this is like a really famous person, they would look so good wearing, whatever, my shoes or my branded clothing. Let's get them on board. So I think it's passion, and then spotting people with similar passions goes so far, because there's just so many fakes out there, just ready to take your money and promote your product. Whether people see through that or not, I don't know, but I think that passion has to run through the whole organization.
Yeah, there's a different resonance to it when that passion, that energy's there. It's a feeling of heart. So speaking of fake, AI is obviously changing things and disrupting everything. How is it changing journalism? What's going to happen when we talk about AI and that collision with journalists?
Yeah, I mean that's the topical subject. I'm on a few chat groups, WhatsApp groups, and we were just talking yesterday about the need. Most of us are journalists, content creators. There's a few PR people in there as well, and we were just talking about the need to work together, the need to pool our resources, share projects, and before not, we might be seen as competitors to each other, or trying to reach out to the same outlets. It's like, no, we've got to start working. We've got to start working together, because AI obviously is changing what we're doing. It's making content easier to produce. We know internally as journalists what is AI produced, but we do question sometimes the general public and whether they know the difference between deep fakes and AI generated articles and videos and that sort of stuff. And if they actually care anymore, whether they've just become a bit blasé with AI now, there's like, yeah, I guess it's AI, but it's okay, or whether we have to promote this is generated by AI, whether people actually read it. So for the world of journalism, it's a scary place. And I wouldn't say I'm at the end of my career, but I'm definitely midlife to, sort of, moving, thinking about other things, which is why, I mentioned the crypto clear. It's a side gig. It's a project that isn't relying on a magazine or a publication to take my stuff. It's my own project, and I've got two other projects that I'm just trying to test. One is about sports and mental health with athletes called Dubai Athletic, and one is a money saving website because Dubai is very expensive. And it's really funny because a lot of people live a lifestyle here, but they can't afford to live the lifestyle. So they live in a big 4-bedroom villa and they drive a Range Rover. They send their kids to international school, but they can hardly make ends meet. And we're trying to say, look, it's okay. This is expensive. Look, you have to save money. You can't go to brunches every weekend. Here's some great ideas to save money. So I'm working on a few projects because I just think that AI will end up, eating my breakfast. It will end up with media saying, newspapers, magazines, traditional media saying, you know what, sorry, we can't afford to pay you that for that feature. We can do something on AI nearly as good, but with an editor on top who will just tidy it up. And so yeah, so I think it's a very it's obviously we've seen newspapers in decline, we've seen journalism in decline, but it's just been sped up so much now with AI. It's really adapting and doing such a good job. And for years, loads of people in the creative space, because I used to work for a Campaign Middle East, a magazine covering advertising marketing. For years, people were saying, "Oh, AI is, it's not good enough. It will never be good enough. You still need that human element." And it's like as we've gone on, it's just got better and better and better. And it's like I think we're kidding ourselves here. AI is getting so sophisticated. It's learning so much that we're in real danger of selling ourselves out of jobs.
Yeah, it has a risk of eating your lunch. So it's basically forming an alliance and at the same time producing value elsewhere. Just to double tap on that, actually, as an expat, like how do you stop lifestyle creep and comparing yourself to the Joneses then? What would be your advice?
It's a good question because, again, like we're saying about the Money Saver website and just talking to other expats, or it's a hot topic. There's things like in Singapore, people love to talk about food and the latest noodle place. Where's the best place to get chicken rice? And property is a big thing. I think in Dubai now, they talk about property prices. Everybody complains about the traffic. Traffic's really bad here, but they are building more roads. And people complain about the cost of living and how they can save money, but stealth-like save money because they still want to have the beach club. They want to go out for the brunches. They want to drive a nice fancy SUV and live in a nice villa, but their salary doesn't necessarily do that. So I think it's really the short answer is it's your upbringing. If you can just be frugal and save money because you were taught that money can quickly come and it can quickly go. So when you got the opportunity to earn good money, save it and spend a little. Have that whole ratio, whether it's I can't remember what it is now. It's like 50, 30, 20. Like save 30, spend 20, whatever. But your property, I should know it really. But anyway, there's a formula that's stood the test of time when it comes to your income. And a lot of people have forgotten that. And it's like, oh, I just spend 90% of it and maybe save 10% of it, It really is a difficult thing to do because I found it when I came to Singapore. I felt like I was on holiday for about 2 years, living in a condo with a swimming pool and good weather and all the food choices. And you forget it's somewhere where you come to work. And I think a lot of people come to Dubai and they see the lifestyle and they think, man, this is obviously a good lifestyle. But I've also got to work as well here. And a lot of people have forgotten that. They still think they're living on a holiday. It's like a 52-week holiday. And I think it's like, if you want to be here for the long term, you really have to save money. But some people come here for 2 years and they don't even last 2 years, but you don't really hear those stories because they've run out of money or they've gotten into debt. And debt is a very sensitive subject here. So it's just really remember your roots because a lot of people come from very modest backgrounds and they come to Dubai and they live like lords and like kings and queens here. And it's funny to see. It's like, hang on a minute, don't you live in like a 2-bed, 2-down in like southeast London like 2 years ago, and now you're living in a villa, living the dream, and like you're shopping at Waitrose every day and driving a fancy Range Rover. It's like, let's have a reality check here. But yes, so many people are getting burnt by the lavish lifestyles.
Yeah, it's funny how quickly it happens, and it's almost like a psychology trick, a mind trick to yourself by accident that you don't realize. But yeah, so what you're suggesting here is save aggressively, more aggressively than you think you need to, do the maths, save, put the money away first for yourself, and then build a lifestyle, and just be diligent around what you actually need and what's just for show. But
Yeah, absolutely.
that's
And
hard.
sorry,
No, I was just saying
it
that that's
is
hard
hard.
because you've got the core of Web3 and crypto revolution happening in your face. You've got everyone driving around in Lambos. You've got wealth is everywhere, right, in your face in Dubai. How do you balance what you aspire to have with the core of what you need to have?
Yeah, there are a lot of wealthy people leaving the UK because of the changes in the tax rules and coming to Dubai because it's tax free. So already they have amassed a lot of wealth already. And that applies for Indians, Chinese, Russians coming here with a huge pot of cash already that's well invested in their properties diversified. And I think a lot of people look at those people living in nice houses and with nice cars, and they aspire to that. But these people are bringing that wealth from other countries. But if you come to Dubai, with nothing, it's still a hard place to build a company because so many other people are doing it. But there's a real, as I was saying, with the government and just the whole entrepreneurial spirit, there's a real can-do attitude here. Everybody wants to set up a company. And I worked for media companies for, like 20 years, and I never would have thought about setting up my own thing. And I've done it now like a couple of times because there's the entrepreneurial spirit. It's not necessarily to make money. It's really, look, we're in the right place. The ecosystem here is ripe and it's perfect in the Web3, crypto, blockchain, AI space to set something up. And there's like-minded people also would like to collaborate with you as well. And I love that. I love that spirit of entrepreneurism, and also talking to entrepreneurs as well and seeing what they've done. And some have been hugely successful. But I guess getting back to that question, the Lambo and the lavish lifestyle, you also have to read the stories or go onto Reddit or social media and say some of these people have leased that car. They don't own that car, and it's just to put up appearances because money makes money. Money attracts money. You drive a like with luxury property agents can't turn up in a Hyundai, and show you around a mansion on the path. They've got to show up in a Mercedes, BMW, Bentley, or whatever there, because it's got to fit with the brand and it's got to align with your thinking. You've made money, you can spot great potential. And so I think it's really just take a step back and say perhaps they don't own that asset. Perhaps they're just borrowing it, or perhaps they can't afford it. But we've all got to keep up images. Just be very careful about what you buy into, and I think that comes down to your education and your sort of financial knowledge as well. But yeah, it's difficult, especially as we know with social media as well, trying to like that envy, FOMO, and seeing all of that money and thinking I want a piece of that action, but just being a bit more patient, a bit more strategic.
Yeah, I know. And something that's standing out, Justin, something that you've said quite a few times during this interview is the word build, right? And it's almost like the word build with passion. It's like this idea that if you're so focused on building something, that you're with like-minded people, that you're investing your energy into that rather than trying to fake your way to it. If you just did that, you'd almost be too busy creating to then have a chance at a shot at getting that, but the right way. You've got to do the hard yards first. So I can see that some of your passions, your entrepreneurial spirits coming out, but who is Justin Harper?
That's a good question, actually. Uh, I just think now for me, it's someone with a lot of drive and saying, it doesn't matter how old you are, what you've done before, there's always new opportunities and chances to see what you can do in new areas, whether it's as a journalist, as a podcast host, as an entrepreneur and a founder as well. And it's like always having that drive, and obviously another word I've said a lot is passion for other people. And I think I've always been passionate in the media space. And that's why it sort of, brings a tear to my eye when I talk about AI and what it's doing to the industry, and that need for, sort of real quality journalism is sort of sliding down the scale of what people want, I guess. And so it's using that experience, for decades that's become out of date, sadly. Working for newspapers where you'd have to wait 24 hours before it made it to the public. Whereas now news is immediate and we get it straight away, or someone will tweet it or whatever. It's adapting to what's needed out there, not saying, oh, this is how we did it and this is what people like. The same with the sort of highbrow, intelligent economist and New York Times style features. Like, yeah, that's great, it's got its place, but most people just want a really quick summary of that story because they just don't have time. Not saying they're stupid, just that they don't have time to read something really weighty of 2,500 words. So I think for me, it's like adapting and saying, like, podcasts. Let's get a podcast out, because I think people would rather listen to that, trying to spot what the audience wanted. So I think someone with a lot of drive and someone who's agile and actually shows it, not just talks about being agile, saying, look, this is where the market's going, Web3, crypto, I need to be in that space. And I haven't been in the crypto space for long. It's just, I felt there's a lot going on here, and also a lot of myths and misconceptions about crypto, that it's for crypto bros, it's about trading Bitcoin, and it's making millions of driving fast cars. Like, no, this technology can save regular people money in transferring their salary back to the home country. And we all know, when it comes to international transfers, you can get really ripped off. And it's sad that it's more like low income people can get really ripped off in the huge fees that they pay. Crypto and the blockchain, that was one of the things that it was built for, was to really quickly and easily transfer money without the need for a third party. And that's what I thought, look, it's also about doing good. It's also about trying to help people. And I guess that's something that stayed with me throughout my career. It's like, not necessarily like, oh, look at me, I'm amazing, I'm always helping people. It's like, no, I use the word democratization. And there's that democratization of financial knowledge as well, by saying, look, you don't need to fully understand crypto or the blockchain. You just need to know that you can transfer money back home much, much cheaper. And like with the internet, you don't need to know how the internet works. You don't need to know how a credit card really works at the back end. You just need to know it. You can use it and it will pay for something, and you'll get a bill for it, at the end of the month. And that's the thing about crypto and the blockchain. It's so new that people feel like they have to understand it. There's only a certain level of understanding you need, but generally it's like, don't get bogged down in, the nodes and all of the sort of underlying layer 1, layer 2 blockchain technology out there. And I think that's really something I've tried to do, is say, look, don't, like fund managers and global financial crisis, these were just people who were like so powerful, making really bad decisions. And at the end of the day, it cost people their homes, cost people their lives, cost people their jobs. It's like, if we all knew what was going on and we could understand finance better, the world and the finance world would be a better place.
Yeah, that's a super important point you just hit upon at the end there as well. And I see that to your point. You are agile and you've moved, and I like the way you moved. I like the way you moved, and the way that you cut through these topics. You dare to take on risks, and you offer this straightforwardness about jargon, and you get it done. You get the job done. So I can see that you've applied this philosophy to multiple aspects, especially to crypto. And it's almost like you pull back the curtain when you realize the systems that we traditionally rely upon are slow and traditional to make someone else money, and that they're taking your money. Yet the technology and the tools already exist and have for years. They get bashed about in the media as not safe and used for the wrong things. Yet it's already all there. It already all works. And it's so exciting. It's so exciting, this level of disruption that's coming, as well as the depreciation of your own assets if they're just sitting in the bank. Like, there's just so many parts of this that you can kind of add value to, and I can see that you're doing that, and I can see that you've done that throughout your career. You've worked across 4 different continents, so North America, Asia, Middle East, and Europe. So really, really exciting. But how have you even done that with kids? And like, what have you been doing to be able to do that? Because that in itself is a big feat.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's that trying to create global citizens, taking your kids along for the journey, hoping they don't get too disrupted along the way, and then they get to see other parts of the world and other cultures. And my kids, they speak fluent Chinese because their time in Singapore, and they have a Chinese teacher who carried that on when we left. They speak Arabic because we're in the Middle East, so it's part of the curriculum at school. Obviously, they speak English as well, and it's also about the cultures as well as speaking the languages. But that wasn't really the mindset of thinking about the children. I think sometimes we have to admit we're selfish and we've got our careers first, and our kids come second, and you just keep your fingers crossed that your kids are, agile or flexible enough or robust enough that they can deal with the changes. And so I think, for me, it's really opportunities. I grew up in like a village in Essex, and I lived there for, like till I was like 20, till I went off to university, and I met people there who, had much more wider experiences than me, and I was jealous and envious of them. And so it's like, I think it's always good, travel broadens the mind, but also living in another country as an expat broadens your mind even further when you're deeply ingrained in society and that culture. And my kids, they spent their formative years in Singapore. So if you said to them, where is home? They probably wouldn't say anywhere. They're not quite sure, but they would say Singapore, because that was when they were growing up and they went to school, and they still go back to Singapore about 3 times a year, because their grandparents are there, and my wife's parents, my in-laws, are there, and so they're still regular in Singapore, and they have a much bigger community of friends in Singapore than they do in Dubai, because Dubai is still a very sort of fluid country, and while there is obviously a lot of people staying here, a lot of people leaving, there's a lot more activity. So yeah, we're sort of have moved around, but I think they are better people for it. But it could have gone horribly wrong. They might turn around one day and say to me, I hate you because you kept on upending us, and we're moving, and we wanted to stay in Singapore, and we hate the Middle East, or I love the UK, it's such a great place to live. Probably won't ever say that.
Okay, I know that time is ticking on and we've got to wrap this up, sadly, but let's do a quick fire round, just really, really quick. A couple of different questions to finish off. I've loved having you on, but what do you want your legacy to be?
Someone who kept pushing and kept trying new things, and didn't say, right, I'm happy with what I'm doing now, and this is my safe space. Always thinking about that comfort zone, and that applies to the career. That applies to like sports. Like I took up triathlons a couple of years ago, and I hate swimming, and it was a real struggle, especially when there's 100 people who dive in the sea at the same time as you. So somebody who's just always trying new things, but also saying, I'm not good at this, I need to stop it, but not straight away. It's like you could keep on pushing and doing something. So it's just like, what, I want to try everything and see how I get on. So I would say an experimenter, always thinking about what else could I do.
That's awesome. So what is the most underrated founder trait?
That's a good question. I think it's finding interesting people to work with. Finding, people say about finding people smarter than you, and I think there is some truth in that. Building that team of like-minded people who you could call upon, and it takes the pressure off you as the founder and the entrepreneur to always come up with answers. Having other people, but it also comes with giving power and decision making away. But I think it's that core team. I think is really important.
Nice, nice. Okay, so what are entrepreneurs struggling with right now? Is it funding, landing their first client, or getting the right team around them? I think I might know the answer here.
I think for here in the Middle East, given all of the capital that is potentially available, that's not the issue. It's talent. Finding the right people with the Web3, crypto, blockchain experience, as well as understanding, and obviously AI is obviously creating that other dynamic sort of element there. You really have to keep up to speed with the latest AI tools as well. So talent shortage, I think, is the biggest stumbling block.
No, that's massive. Getting the right people on the bus and then also keeping them on the bus. What has been one of the biggest lessons in your life that has strategically expanded in ways you wouldn't have believed?
I think it's really being aware of your mental health. And I would say for me, that's really important, of knowing, because I love what I do and passionate about it, but there are days when I'm drained and I don't step away, and I need to step away from things and say, right, like, could we reschedule that meeting? Could I even reschedule that interview? Because I just have a bit of time off to think, it's like Ferris Bueller. What did Ferris Bueller say once? It's like, the world moves fast. Sometimes you've got to stop and sort of take a breath or look around at what's going on. And I think in your own career as well, you do have to take a step back, only for like a short period of time, go for a walk or something, but at least step away and then just take a breather. I think that's important to me, the mental health recharge.
I think that's an amazing point, and something that people really should take awareness of, being able to step away even though you're in the thick of it. Justin, thank you so much from the bottom of my heart for coming on, for shining a light on the most important topics. I think everybody should go out and follow Entrepreneur Middle East, and also the Crypto Clear newsletter. Let's get everyone signed up to that. I am a massive supporter and fan of yours. You are an inspiration. Thank you for cutting through the jargon, making the complex simple, and for being an all-round awesome bloke.
Brilliant. Tim, it's been an honor. More than happy to spend an hour talking to you. The Lambo's still running outside, and the pool and the beach club are calling me, but I definitely think that's been a really great 60 minutes I spent with you. Really, really smart questions, and really made me think about my answers in there. And also, I'm a big fan of your work and your books as well. You got to Be the Lion. I've read that. I gave it to my son as well. He's nearly 18 and he's got it on his bookshelf. So yeah, I'm more than happy to come on the show. Yeah, good luck.
Oh, awesome. Thank you. It's been such a pleasure.